Hello, everybody, and welcome to another stream. Today, we are going to be talking about the Go Show. So I run this every 2 weeks. That's every 2 weeks, every Wednesday at 12 p.m. GMT time. Now, today, this is the second episode, and we're going to be talking about creating your first web server in Go. Now, there's a reason I'm doing this, and that is because it's a really popular way to use the language. And a fun fact for you, you can actually stand up a web server in Go within the character limits of a tweet. The more you know, hey? Right, just going to give it a few minutes. We're going to talk through a couple of things, namely the code of conduct. We're going to go through the agenda, what we're going to be doing today, and then we're just going to hop straight into some coding because, hey, that's what we're here for. Now, I don't intend on taking up too much of your time. So these are run lunch and learn kind of style. So 30 minutes to 45 minutes, absolute max. I hope you enjoy what we have to go through today. So let me just put a message in the chat for everybody that's joining, and let's get cracking. So, as always, code of conduct, please be kind, please be respectful, please take a moment to read this because it's super important. Please be friendly. The chat's open for questions, ask great questions. I'll get to them as soon as I can. And yeah, this is a learning environment for everybody. So I hope you enjoy. So who am I? My name is Liam Hampton, and I am a senior regional cloud advocate here at Microsoft. Now, I namely work out of the Microsoft Reactor in London, but I do a lot of online streams as well. As you're probably aware, you may have seen my face across the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel a couple of times. I'm also an author ambassador. I think about security. Security is a huge focus in development. I focus on DevOps, and security is just one of the key fundamental foundations of that process. I'm a Dev Network Advisory Board member, which means I help to organize, well, not organize, but namely help run hackathons and sort of have guidelines and help be a part of that on a global scale. I write a lot of Go code. If you can't tell, I love the Gopher. And I travel the world in my personal time. I love getting immersed in different cultures. So that's a little bit about me. Throw it in the chat, tell me where you're joining from. And I hope to see some global audience. So some learning goals for today. Now, I usually have two, but for the Go Show, I'm only going to have one. And the one learning goal is I hope that you learn and understand how to create a web server in Go. Like I said, it's not too difficult. It's more of the setup that is a bit of a pain, or it can be on your machine, but we're getting better with code spaces and all these pre-made environments that everybody can use now. So, I see you. Hello. No, you're most welcome. We haven't got started yet, but I hope the show's great. Okay, so web servers. What are web servers? Now, they have one fundamental functionality, and that is to serve content to a user, whether that is a HTML page, whether it's some images, or whether it is videos, you name it, that is the purpose of a web server, hence the name, server. So we typically use them as API servers in Go, and what I mean by that is it's used to be requested against and handoff request, incoming and outgoing. We use Go, or we create them in Go because of their speed, simplicity, and concurrency, which I've kind of covered in previous episodes, but that's pretty much why we create these web servers. Now, you're going to say, Liam, you can't just do that. What about middleware? Well, middleware is also another key fundamental part of a server or a web server. Now, middleware is software that sits between the application code and the web server. So it sits just in the middle. It's that middle pillar. Now, there's a big reason for that. And security is pretty much one of the main fundamental reasons, right? So it intercepts any request that comes out of the web server and any request that's coming into the web server. It intercepts that in the middle. Now, we use this for logging, authentication, rate limiting to stop things falling over, and request validation. So it stops bad actors essentially getting into your web server. Now, that is a little bit too low or high. Yep, a little bit too low level for what we're doing today. But I'm just going to show you how to create and stand up a fundamental web server in Go using its standard package. I'm going to show you using, I think, Gin and Fiber. So two really popular open source web frameworks that sort of build on top of the standard package. And then we may or may not get around to reading an index.html file and rendering that from the server as well. So it's great to see the numbers creeping up. I've got good numbers on here. Thank you for all joining and welcome. Before I get going, I just want to say we have got a Cloud Skills Challenge, and this is not the standard. So you have the standard set of sort of learn modules that I always stick in there, but there's a few other quick starts as well that I'd love you to go through. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about Go and what we do here at Microsoft, scan this QR code, give it a go, or go to aka.ms/Liam. Super easy link to remember. And I'm actually going to pop that in the chat. Oh, you can't hear anything. Let me know if there is any issues with audio. I don't see any issues from my side, so it might be yours. Try refreshing the browser if you're watching on YouTube, or try and turning your sound up. I've sometimes had that. That sounds silly, but trust me, I've done it a number of times. So I'm just going to pop this link into the chat and yeah, go to it and have a go and tell me what you think. But that is for the Cloud Skill Challenge. That is aka.ms/Liam. And of course, before we get going, I'll also show you the other QR code, which I have, which is content submission form. So if you enjoy what you see today and you want to, if you want to let me know what else you want to see on the Go Show, then please do fill this in. And there's only literally 3 questions. It doesn't take more than 30 seconds for you to do this, but it helps me help you, because I don't want to keep picking from a random bucket and hoping that you'll turn up. I want you to tell me exactly what you want to see, and I will go through it. Cool. So that is either scan this QR code on the screen or go to aka.ms/the Go Show content. And again, I'll pop that one in the chat as well. aka.ms/the Go Show content. Wonderful. Lovely. So let's jump out and let's jump into some live coding. So I'm going to come off here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, and I'm going to sort out exactly what I want to show you. So let's move this out of the way. Let's open up VS Code and let's get going. So share my screen now. And I want this one, hopefully, maybe. Let me know if you can see that one. If you want me to make it any bigger, please let me know. We'll get going now. So what I've done here is I have opened up the same folder as I had last time. So last time I had JSON and I called it main.go, silly naming, but that was just all the JSON stuff from the first episode. This time I've created a new subfolder called web server. Don't worry, all of this code is going to be available to you online. It's going to be on GitHub. I will share the link with you at the end of the episode. And what I have is I have package main. And in package main, I'm going to create a web server. Now this is going to be done with the standard package. So the first thing which I have to do, if any of you remember, is imports. And I am going to be using Copilot to help me with this one because it helps speed things up. I've got 3 functions or 3 different ways of doing this, so hopefully we don't run out of time. So the first import I'm going to have, and it's going to call it FMT, which is the format package. I'm not going to need log, so I'm going to put the net, it already knew, the net HTTP package, and that's all I'm going to need. Now all I need to do is create a main function. Now let's call function main. And what I want to do is I want to have a handler function. Now a handler function is something of when I hit, I don't know, localhost port 8080 / and then a name. So whether I call it hello or just leave it as a root directory, or sorry, not directory, as it's like a slash, that is a handler function. And that is what handles every request which comes in to the server. So the first thing I'm going to do is http://handlefunc is, oh, my keyboard's a bit funky, and I want it to be on the root. So yeah, just a root, so slash. And from that point, I'm going to say handler. I think, yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Then, I don't want to do that one. Go away. Let's close off the main function. So what that handler function is going to do is return the function handler. Now, I haven't created a function called handler yet. I haven't created a server yet. I've just wrote out the handler function. So now what I want to do is I want to listen and serve on a port. So I want to create the actual server. So to do that, we're going to do http://listen and serve. And I'm going to call port 8080 and return nil. So what I'm really doing there is this is going to return an address, and it's going to call the handler, which is the actual function, and it's going to return error, but I'm going to return nil. I always want this to stay up, and that should be enough to create a web server. That's what you need to stand up a pretty simple web server. But now I actually need to go and create the function itself. So I need to create handler. So the way that we do that is we create a function. So we namely say func, and then I'm going to say handler, because that's what I've called it. I could call this anything. I could call this hello. I could call it goodbye. I could call it whatever I like. It's just a function which I'm going to be calling when I hit that /root. So let's call it handler. And then I want to pass in a response writer. So I'm going to say W, which is just, it's a variable. And I'm going to say HTTP dot response writer. Now we do that because we want to be making requests and we want it to return, we want to take in a response and give out a request. This is all in the function signature. Then we want to give it a request. So we're going to say R for request, so shorthand, and then we're going to do a pointer to HTTP dot request. Now this is pretty standard across any web server function which you're going to be writing. Now this will always be the function signature for requests and responses, and you'll always see this. So it's going to be it becomes sort of second nature at this point. But inside here, I want to return something. I want to say hello world or something. Yeah? I want to return something to the user. So let's go fmt dot fprint, and let's say we're going to put W for the response writer because we want to return it, we want to send it back to the user. And I'm going to say hello world. If I can type. I've got a new keyboard, by the way, so expect typos. Now that is all we need to do to stand up a pretty standard web server. So if I go ahead and run that, so I want to make sure that I'm in the correct directory. Yep, so I can do go run webserver.go. And nothing's going to print back to me because I haven't printed anything out to the terminal, but that is actually running. So what I can do now is I can create a new terminal down here, and I can do a curl request to localhost 8080. And it returns hello world. But there's something wrong because I can also do /hello world or hello, and it just still reprint the same thing. That's because every single time I'm hitting that bottom root, it's always going to return the function. So there's a way that we can go around that, or we can just do a simple little URL path and just like if it matches the / and / only, then we're going to print back the function. If not, then say it's not found. So a real simple bit of code inside the function. What we can do is if r.url path like this is not equal to just a /, then we can do a little bit of validation and say HTTP not found, and this will return like a 404 kind of response to you, and then just do the response writer and the request, and this is what we're going to return, the function, and it will exit at that point. And it'll say, hey, you know what? Nothing here, go away, don't return anything, okay? So now if we were to restart the web server, we should have an error, I hope. So we can do the original curl, which would be hello world. Now, if we were to do /hello, there we go, 404 page not found. So a simple bit of validation on a web server. This would usually go through middleware. This is not something that you'd probably write up in a web server itself here, but it's something which you can move across. And it's a really good way to validate responses and requests that are coming in on certain paths. Now, I did that purely because I found this out by accident. By actually playing around with this a while ago, and it didn't really occur to me that that would happen. I always thought, when I'm making quick proof of concepts or when I'm creating quick web servers, I never used to put this validation in, but it makes total sense as to why. The more you sort of learn about this, yeah, super useful bit of validation to stop you from having returning the wrong things when people are hitting the wrong paths. So that, my friends, is how you stand up a simple HTTP server in Go using the standard package. Now, I said I was also going to look at Fiber and Gin. Now, I've used Fiber before. I haven't used Gin. Gin's the first time I'm using it in this stream, but it's got a really cool output, which I can show you. So let's clear this one, and let's just comment out all of that code there, and let's move on to, let's go down a little bit. So we've still got our imports. but we also need to do, because it's a third-party import now that we're going to be bringing in. We're going to be bringing in Gin, which is a little bit different to the standard library. It's kind of built on top of the standard library. It gives you extra logging. It gives you more powerful routing, those kind of things. So let's give this a go. In my imports, I'm going to want something, or actually, let's leave my imports uncommented. Didn't mean to. Okay, well, they just disappear because of my lovely my lovely plugin I have in VS Code. Okay, so I want to import, and I want to import Gin. So the way that I'm going to do that is actually just going to copy and paste the GitHub repository. I'm not going to press save because it will just get rid of this. And we're going to have some issues in a minute, and I want to show you how to resolve them. So let's have a function main, and let's start calling a router. Now, I'm not entirely sure how Gin works at this point when it comes to standing up the server, but this is a really, really good way of getting started quickly using Copilot. So if I don't know, which I don't really know how to write Gin off the back of my hand, it's actually going to give me some examples here. So I'm going to say R is equal to gin.default. Now, let's just have a little look at what default actually is at this point, and it may not show me because I need to import it. But I'm also going to, in fact, I'll come back to that one in a second, but I'm going to write the handler function first. Okay, so actually, let's save it and see what happens. Okay, so it's still not liking this import, and that's because I haven't done a go mod in it. Now, I haven't got any modules for this, so it doesn't know where to look for it on the path. But we'll come back to that in a second. So let's quickly write the handler function. So it's very similar to how we wrote the previous one, except this is going to be taking in a context, and the context is going to be of Gin. So like a gin.context. So rather than passing in readers, writers, responses, etc., we're going to be using Gin. So let's say handler is context, and we're going to pass it in. It already knows what I'm going to say here. But it's got gin.context, and it's going to be c.string. So it's going to reply hello world for me. And it's going to say status OK. Now, you can actually pass this a number. So a 200, you can overwrite this by saying 200, 404, 500, etc., depending on what you're doing at this point. But Copilot says status OK. That just means a 200. It was an OK request, and it worked. So the next thing I need to do is actually do a go mod init. Now, I need to do this outside of this folder. So if I do go mod, so if I look where I am inside this repository, I need to do a go mod init. Now, it has put it, it has actually put it outside my web server, but if I put it inside the web server directory, it would completely fail. So now I need to do a go mod tidy, and hopefully it will bring in the Gin package, and ta-da, it got rid of everything for me. So all those red lines, it now recognizes it's on my path. Now we're using modules at this point. Yes, I can show it in a web browser as well. I was just trying to keep it all within VS Code for the purpose of just keeping it into like one roof and one bit of context. I can certainly show it in a web browser in a moment. But let's just quickly create this one, and then I will show you. It's nothing exciting in a web browser. It just literally at the top. The reason that's why I haven't is because it's really small at the top. It just says hello world. So we can cancel this web server now, and we can start it up again. Now the web server is going to be running Gin this time. So we can have a little look at how this runs. Now I thought this was quite cool. So let's give it a go. And it's going to be listening on a whole bunch of things here. So we can see, it's listening on port 8080. So we've got extra logging at this point. So this is what I mean by these packages have extra things, or like more powerful than the standard library, because they're bringing in extra parts. Now I spoke about logging being in middleware. Now, Gin, I don't know how it works at the internals, but it kind of helps you with that side of it, with the logging, the authentication, those sort of things. So if I were to do a curl localhost 8080, it still replies hello world. And if I go and actually have a look at the web server itself, we can see the status code OK. So we can see it all down here. So this was the request that came in. At this date, at this time, this was the time, this was the location. So 127 is localhost, and it was a GET request on root /. Important part now, I haven't implemented any validation for any other routing like I did previously. So if I was to do a curl /hello, it automatically gives me a 404 not found. Now, I haven't written any validation. Gin has handled that for me, which is really cool. And as you can see here in the logs, it's 404, not found from this GET request, which is just on the slash root. It already handles that for me. So we can see how different packages are handling different requests in different orders. That is Gin. Pretty powerful, right? So if you want me to, I can actually show you this in a web browser. So let me just remove this. It handled that for me. So no validation needed. Absolutely fantastic when it comes to wanting something to handle all of that for you. It makes it so much easier as a developer when you're writing sort of web servers. So that also abstracts from the need to know about it, which is also quite dangerous if you don't know about it. Like myself, I was so used to just using these packages that I never did the validation, like I told you at the beginning of the stream, using the standard NetHTTP package. So that is Gin. Let's move on to Fiber. And then we'll go back to the regular one and show some HTML. So Fiber is very much like Gin. Now it's my personal favorite. It's actually what I use the most. And I just like it. It's really, really good. It's open source and anybody can sort of contribute to it. So they've had a number of versions. We've got version 1, which was a couple of years ago, and version 2 has been out for a while now. So very much like before, I need to import the Fiber package, but I'm going to just let my import do this for me, and I'm going to write a main function. So let's do a func main, and let's open up a app. Let's say app equals fiber.new. So even without the import, Copilot has kind of guessed where I'm going with this one. I don't know whether it's because I've written this a number of times or whether it just already knows. Then I'm going to do app.get, and I'm going to, very similar to what we've done previously. They're all very much the same when it comes to this. You have your your different routing. So if anybody's used to writing Node Express, which is where I actually came from as a developer myself, it's actually a really good way to get into routing in Go as well. So Fiber is very, very similar to Node Express. As you can see already, I'm doing an app.get, which you'd use in Node Express if you're ever to make a server in Node. So Node, for anybody who doesn't know, is JavaScript, or a take or sort of a wrapper around JavaScript to help you write web servers and things like that. And Express was just a module which you use for routing. So very much similar concept. Let's do the slash, and we want it to be, where should we say? Let's just get it to return. Actually, we're going to put in a function. So yeah, exactly what Copilot is wanting me to do here. And let's just say, let's return an error at this point. Because if anything goes wrong, I do want to actually catch it. And it kind of already knows what I'm trying to do here. I don't know why it's getting me to do like some funky back braces. Maybe I've just messed those back braces up a little bit. But hey, it's fine. Let's return c.sendString and hello world. Now, of course, it's probably going to moan because I'm missing some, maybe, I don't know. Let's just redo that one. Like so. It's probably going to moan about that one. There we go. So it's going to moan about not knowing what Fiber is, and that's quite right. I haven't imported it anywhere. So what I can do is create some imports. Oh, my wheel was a bit faster. So let's do an import, and let's say I actually have it written down over here. GitHub.com/go Fiber, and it's like Fiber v2. And again, it's going to moan at the lack of awareness around it. So let's clear all of this so you can see what's going on in the terminal, and go mod tidy, and hopefully it'll bring in Fiber for me. And hopefully all of the red lines have disappeared. Fantastic. So now we actually have a Fiber root. Okay, so Fiber web server going to return hello world. Okay, the next thing we need to do is app.listen. So anybody who is familiar with Node will have written this a number of times as well. And we're going to say port 8080, just like every other one is going to be on that port. Now, save that one. And what it's going to do is, actually, let's run through the code. So app is a new app at this point. So it's a new router for Fiber. We're going to be listing on the slash root, and it's going to be calling it a function. So it's like an inline function. Going to return an error if anything goes wrong. and it's going to be returning a string, hello world, if it goes right. And say, let's just say hello fiber, just so you can see the difference between all of the other ones. So let's do a where are we? We are not even in the right directory here. Web server. There we go. Go run webserver.go, and it didn't want to start up, which is fine. That's because we already have something running over here because I use 2 terminals. There we go. It has started up. Now with Fiber, you get a standard sort of output. Now you can actually turn this off. There is like a line which you just put true or false on, and it can turn this off. But I find this quite useful to have, especially when you're debugging and running in containers. So I can now go to 127. So I can go port 8080 in my browser, or I can do what I've been doing previously and just curl port 8080 on here. So we can do localhost and port 8080, and it will say hello Fiber. Now you would get absolutely no other difference in your web browser. It would just sort of stay on the top line. Again, I don't want it to freeze before getting to what I actually really want to show you today. But this is a really good way to create web servers. Now, I use Fiber for a number of reasons, not just because it's like Node.js, and that's where I came from, but actually because it's a really good way to render Go on a server side. So I actually use it to build a lot of applications in containers, to build websites. I've actually built one of my blogs, or the DevOps with Liam playlist on YouTube, which I did about a year ago. I created the entire thing rendered through the server with Go. Really, really cool way to sort of dabble in personal projects at that point. So that was the 3 main web servers. Now I want to show you how you can render a HTML file, because that's pretty much what people want to do with this. They're like, it's great having a web server as an API, but what happens when I want to show something to my user? Now, of which you can do that. Now, let me just go and stop everything, because we're going to be using the standard library for this one. So I'm not going to be using any of those other third parties, because that was just to show you you can use them and sort of how powerful they are and what they're used for. But let's just go ahead and clear down what we already have. So we can clear this one, and we can clear this terminal. Ooh. Clear that terminal as well. So I will, by the way, make sure all of this code that I've gone through so far is in GitHub later today. But let's just go ahead and get rid of everything up to gin. Now let's undo this one. And that's just a standard web server. We have the standard web server back now. Now, the only thing that I need to do is I need to call on a handler function, which will serve up a file. Now it involves creating a new file, which I can do, and it will just be in the same directory as what I already have. But let's go ahead and write a little bit of code for that to happen. So let's just comment out the path validation, and let's just say HTML and error. So if you watch any of my Learn Go with Liam, you'll see that it's going to be a double return function. So we can have multiple returns, and we're going to say os.read file. And for anybody, I don't know what I've done there. For anybody who has used the IOUtil package before in Go, it was deprecated at 1.16. We're now on 1.20, but I'm actually using 1.19 here. So you have to use the OS package now. So os.read file. Again, my lovely keyboard. And I'm going to say index.html. Now, what that's going to do is it's just going to go off and try and find index.html in the current root directory of the project, and it'll render it. But I need to do some error checking, because if it's not there, it will just fall flat on its face, and I don't want that. So let's do some error checking, and let's just say, yeah, I'm going to go with whatever Copilot has there. But I also want to do a HTTP status internal server error, which is going to be, actually, no, let's leave that. Let's just leave that as a return and see what we're doing with that one. So HTML is getting a little bit moaning because it's not being used. So we now have to go and use it. So before we do that, let's go set the content headers, because we want to tell the request exactly what it's going to expect in its header. And we can do that. So w.header. And we're going to set that to, it needs to be capital, content.type or content type. Exactly this, text HTML. So it makes it a lot easier with Copilot. Now, hopefully, what we need to do on the return is one thing. So we're going to leave it with the W, which is the response writer. And then we're going to say percentile S, and that's just going to return, I think it's string in Go HTML. That's, yeah, just like that. Amazing. That's all we need to do to render a HTML file in Go. Now, I need to go and create that HTML file, and I'm going to create it in my current directory. So let's just make sure I am where I am. Let's just do a touch index.html file, and hopefully we'll see it pop up. I'm going to do a little bit of shorthand here. So if anybody doesn't know any of the VS Code shorthands, if you do an exclamation mark and then press enter. So if you have this abbreviation, it actually gives you a sort of like a template for HTML. Pretty useful. The more you know. And I'm just going to populate that with something which I already have. Let's just copy this body. So I have a HTML file open. I'm just going to copy the body across. And what that's going to do is render out a HTML page, which just says, with the title, Welcome to the Go Show. And on the Go Show, we dive into the Go language and have fun, because we do. I like to show you how to do this, and it's like a quick win, a really good foundation for you to get started with Go and have a bit of fun in the meantime. So without further ado, I think we can run this now. And hopefully, I really hope it doesn't throw off my Mac again. But if we go ahead and run the web server, we will see, hopefully it doesn't error out. So it has actually spun something up for me, which is good. Now, I am going to, okay, so far, so good. Remove this one, and I'm going to start sharing my other screen. This is where it went wrong last time, everybody. So I pray for this to happen. Cool. So we can see localhost 8080. There it is. That is rendering an index.html file. And I can show you it's rendering an index.html file, because otherwise it would just be really small text at the top. And I'm not even sharing my screen. There we go. Here we go. Really small text at the top if it wasn't a HTML file. And we can see we've got H1 and H2s here. But if I also go into the inspect element, now I appreciate this is going to be super small on the stream. But if I look at sources, we can see the index.html file down here. This has been brought in from the client side. So that's what it's reading. Okay, so the server has pulled it through and is now displaying it. So with that, we can see that you can render HTML with Go using the standard library. Now, I'm pretty sure if I do /hello again, it's going to show the same thing time and time again. Obviously, it's not going to bring it up in the sources because it's not expecting, it's expecting something else to be there, but it still renders just okay. Now, that is where we can go back to our web server and enable exactly what we did. I know I'm not showing you this. Enable the validation on the path that I had earlier, which was if the path URL is not a slash, then throw a 404. Hopefully, this should error if, there we go, page not found. And if I get rid of hello again, page found. Now you can have some great fun with this. You can add some style.css. You can throw in some different rendering if you like. Create it, make it how you want. Inline styling, style sheets, you name it, you can add to this. It's just a HTML file being rendered with a Go server. Really, really cool way to sort of learn how to make blogs, simple projects, that kind of stuff. If you want to Dockerize it, you can Docker it. I was going to show you how to do that. I mean, I could try and show you how to do that now, if you like, and then you can get started. I'll also put the instructions up on the GitHub repository. So if you want, I can give it a go. I've got 5 minutes, so this will be a testament. So let's remove this one from the stream. Let's go ahead and try and do this one, shall we? Now, I'm actually going to break, and I'm going to see if there's any questions. So if there's any questions in the chat prior to my screen crashing. Yes, just another browser. It is just a browser issue, that was. Should I learn... Here we go. Should I rather learn JavaScript, Node, or Go? Absolutely, totally down to you. If you want to do web development, I would probably teeter on, this is my personal opinion, by the way. So if you want to do web dev, I would sort of edge on JavaScript and Node and learning the fundamentals at that point. If you are into backend engineering, like myself, I was a backend engineer, then I would sway the other way. I would go towards Go. Now, I learned Go because I was tasked with writing a CLI, so like a command line interface for a project which was open sourced, and it was really, really good at creating CLIs. That's how I learned Go. I've just sort of dabbled in the API/middleware section for the past year or so to really understand how it's working, how requests work in Go, concurrency, things like that. So I would certainly recommend learning Go if you're into more of like the DevOps engineering roles. If you're into backend engineering, CLIs, the lower level coding, that's where I see Go sitting. It's really, really good. If you look at things like Kubernetes or software like Kubernetes, or services rather, or Docker, they're all written in Go. It's got like a heavy network or networking aspect to it. Really, really good cloud native language. So that's what I would personally recommend. So let's have a go at quickly Dockerizing this, shall we? And I really hope that this works. If not, then we'll save it for the next episode and I will have it work, because this is going to be a little bit of an add-on since we have like 3 or 4 minutes left. Right then. So let me present my screen again and I'll share. Is it this one? This one. This is the code. Yeah, wonderful. Cool. So let's clear that one. So to Dockerize or to containerize a program, we need to run off a few commands. So the first one I want to do is create a Docker file. Now I need to go and create a Docker file in the root directory. So inside where we have index.html and web server, let's just do a touch Docker file. Docker file. Again, my typing is terrible on this keyboard still. OT Docker file has popped up in the left pane. Now I actually have a load of code, which I'm just going to drop into this one to make it quick and easy. And we can get rid of a couple of lines because they don't make any sense to this project. But essentially what this is doing is taking a base image of Golang 1.19, so what I have running locally, using it as a build image. So I'm using a multi-layered image, which I've explained before. I'm not going to go into too much details, but it basically makes the image a lot smaller. I'm going to use my Go path is Go, and the path is source and /app. I'm going to copy everything over in the current directory into that next current directory. So anything with a dot is everything that you have in your current directory into the other root directory. Going to do a go mod init because to build something you need to have modules initialized. Going to build the website, and then I'm going to chmod, so give it some sort of read-write capabilities within the file system of the container. Then I'm going to copy some things over. So the index.html file and the binary that's built called website, expose port 8080, and then run it as a website. So let me just dig out the command that we need for this one. And what we're going to do is copy over Docker build. And what that here is going to do here is build an image on my local machine, which will containerize the application code that I have in its current directory, and then I can run it in Docker. So hopefully, if I build this, we shouldn't get any errors. Amazing. So we can see if I do Docker images, I can see that I've got a whole bunch of images on here. Let me see the Go show. Version 1, image ID, and it is 11 megabytes. If I did not use a multi-stage build, it would probably be much bigger because of everything which comes with the original image. I'm literally just copying over a binary and a index.html file at this point, and then whatever else is in the base image of the second one. So from Alpine 3.17, that's all I'm going to get. So it's about 10 megabytes and then plus 1 and a bit megabytes of my code, if that. Next, I want to do is then run that. So I can run that locally by exposing a number of ports. And let me just go and get the command because it's a little bit of a long-winded way. Let's clear that. The rid of that part. Now, what this command here is going to do is run in Docker. So I have the Docker daemon running locally, and it's going to do a Docker run. I'm going to detach the port, and it's going to be port 8080. So matching up what I'm running in my code and exposing. You can have them different if you like. I just like to keep them the same. So I've got exposed port 8080, and I'm running on port 8080 internally. And then I'm just giving it a tag. So saying this Docker image, version 1, run it, basically. That's what I had to do. Now that's just the image ID. So I can check that it's running by doing docker ps. And here we go. We've got the Go Show container. Now, if I were to go to localhost port 8080, I should still see the same thing running. Okay, so I don't have any servers running. Now, if I share my screen for this one, so you can see here, that was my last attempt. If I reload it, you can see here, it's still running. That is the Docker container running this, not the server, which is absolutely amazing. So there we go. We have Dockerized it or containerized it. We have run a multiple number of servers. We've also had a freeze in the middle of the stream, which was good fun. Hopefully that doesn't happen again, but I apologize. If you have any questions around this, then please do let me know. So I'm just going to throw up my slides again, and we will continue with the last 2 slides, which I have to run. So that's content submission form. What's happening next? We've got 3 events on March the 15th, 12 p.m. GMT. We've got the Go Show. So another one of these. Please do fill in the content form and let me know what you want to see. On March the 21st at 2 p.m., we have got the EMEA Student Summit happening. So that is aka.ms/student summit. So if you're a student, come along to that one. I'll be hosting that alongside a student advocate or a student ambassador, for Microsoft. And that's going to be covering the whole of EMEA range. So all the way from here to the Middle East and Africa. Absolutely amazing. We've got some great talks lined up for that. And on March the 23rd at 2 p.m., I am running a Tech Day stream, so a 3-hour stream showing you how to deploy a 3-tier application all in Go to Microsoft Azure. So with that, thank you ever so much. Please do check out the Cloud Skills Challenge. Please do fill in the content form for me. It helps me greatly, helps me help you. And yeah, if you would like to connect, let's connect. Now I'm going to throw in the chat a number of links for you to go to if you missed any of the links throughout the stream. So I'm going to pop them into the chat now. So the Cloud Skills Challenge is aka.ms/Liam, which I will pop into the chat now. If you want the series page to catch up on this episode or the next episode, then go to aka.ms/The Go Show. If you would like the content form to tell me what you'd like to see on the Go Show, then please go to aka.ms/The Go Show content. You can see where this is kind of going now, can't we? If you would like to get the material for this, all of the code I'm going to throw into GitHub, you can go to aka.ms/The Go Show GH, which is the Go Show GitHub, basically. So I did see a number of questions in the chat for that one. And those are the links for now. There is one more. If you want the Tech Day sign up, please go to aka.ms/Tech Days. Otherwise, a massive thank you to all of you for sticking with me. Apologies for this, the freeze in the middle of the stream. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you very much, everyone.